I mean, I've known you for over a year. I feel comfortable calling you Brandon, but I should be calling you
That's fine.
Supervisor Holdridge. So why don't you take a moment just to introduce yourself for people who are watching this for the first time and meeting you for the first time?
Yeah, so I'm Brandon Holdridge. I'm the town supervisor of Chester, New York.
Yeah, and so one of the things.
I'm also
Yeah, go ahead.
the oh, sorry, yeah, no, I was just thinking of who else I
Yeah.
am. I'm also the vice chair of campaigns on the Orange County Democratic Committee, and then I'm also the co-chair of the Chester Democratic Committee here in the great town of Chester.
And this
That's it.
is this is the end of your first term in office. Is that right?
So, but this is my third year
Third
of
year.
my first term. My term ends at the end of next year, so I'll be running for re-election next year.
Okay, we're going to talk about that as well. But first, just I've noticed with the national media, there's a lot of confusion between town of Chester, village of Chester. Um, at just a really high level, can you explain the difference between the town and village and what role the town can play or does play concerning what I call the concentration camp at 29 Elizabeth Drive?
Yeah, so the town and the village are two separate entities. They're two separate municipalities and governments. The village of Chester is about 4,000 people, and they have their own mayor and their own board of trustees, 5 people total. They have their own police department, their own street department, their own building codes and zoning codes, planning boards, zoning boards, etc. Whereas the town has its own government, town supervisor, and a town board made up of 4 council members, plus me, which is 5. And we have our own police department, building department, planning board, zoning board, etc. The town includes the village. So village residents are also town residents. They vote in town elections. Altogether, we're about 13,000 people strong. But the same isn't the other way around. Town residents do not vote in village elections. So village residents are kind of special. They vote in both elections. Whereas if you're just a town resident, you are just a town resident. That really is the difference there. In terms of how active the town can be, it's really more from a political slash PR slash people power type activism. I have the town. I've spoken to the attorney about this a couple times. The town doesn't have direct jurisdiction over where this facility is being proposed in the Pep Boys warehouse. That is within the village of Chester, so it falls under the village's jurisdiction in terms of building, zoning, planning, environmental, etc. Now, that doesn't mean that the town wouldn't have indirect standing and possible damages from a facility being placed there. So we would definitely seek to sign on to or support a legal challenge from the village or the county in any way. That would be my stance on it at the very least. And of course, we would be very much looking to cooperate with our village counterparts in any sort of law enforcement response if the facility were to come and if protesters were to come. We're all one Chester, so we need to be on the same team.
Yeah, and what just for people who, New York State has a definitely an interesting dynamic when it comes to town and village relationships. Before all this happened, how would you describe the relationship and interaction between the village and the town of Chester?
Cordial and cooperative. We work on things where it makes sense to work on them. I've made it a point to try to reach out and try to be a little bit more integrated in terms of a few areas, but those talks are ongoing, and I'm hopeful that we can get to somewhere where those would be productive for our residents. And at the end of the day, that's what it's about. It's about making sure that our residents are being taken care of in the best way possible and with the least amount of cost possible. So if there's ways that we can cooperate on a more integrated level, then that's what I'm interested in.
Right. So let me ask you about, as of this morning, because I know this situation has been incredibly fluid. As of this morning, what do we
Yes.
know as for concerning this property?
Yeah. So right now, as far as we understand it, we the facility has not been purchased yet, and up until a few moments ago, I was under the impression that ICE was still interested in purchasing it. because I have not seen anything confirming otherwise. Actual physical, emails or letters or statements or anything from ICE. And that's one thing that I'll probably come back to a few times, is that ICE has refused to communicate with anybody on the ground since the beginning of this whole situation with the Washington Post story back in, I think it was the end of December or the beginning of January when we first all learned about all this. So they have not communicated one damn time to anybody in the village, town, or according to the county executive of the county. So really, every single time we get a piece of information, it's coming from news outlets, and we're basically at the mercy of those news outlets because nothing is confirmed from ICE. So when something was confirmed from ICE, according to a news outlet about the facility, the warehouse being purchased, that turned out to be false, and I believe that spokesperson for ICE was actually let go. So that's where we kind of stood up until this morning. Up until moments ago, there's apparently a press release out by Assemblyman Brian Marr saying that he had spoken to ICE and they confirmed that they're no longer interested in purchasing the facility in Chester, and that would be amazing news. And I'd be very happy to give Brian a handshake if that's the case. But I'm very much interested in seeing that being an official statement and final statement from ICE itself, so we know for a fact that that is the truth, and hopefully it's not a mistake and somebody doesn't get fired and then they go back on that again. That's, again, the incompetence is really making it very difficult to plan, prepare, organize everything. It's making it very difficult to do our jobs.
Yeah, I like New Windsor is a great example of this is a little behind the scenes, right? Where I saw a story in Wired that said ICE DHS was looking to open up offices in New Windsor. I called around. I called the town supervisor. He had no idea. So he went over with the building inspector. And as it turns out, ICE has been operating there since the summer without any sort of communication to anybody. In the case of the letter from Assemblyman Marr, not that I doubt it, but one of the things that we've heard from readers is that ICE lies. And that's one of the things that we've also repeated is that ICE lies. And so do you think that there's any credibility to some of the people who would suggest that this isn't a mistake? This is ICE simply pretending that, no, we're not purchasing, while actually going forward with setting up the facility?
I wouldn't put it past them. I mean, I really just would not put it past them to do something like that. I also want to say I know Brian personally. I don't think he'd put out a statement like this unless he believed that he was being told the truth. So, I would hope that he is correct. I'm hoping against everything that he's correct. But I honestly wouldn't put it past ICE right now to play these kind of games and tactics to, redirect people and misdirect people and lull us into a sense of security. And then like that, they, go in and purchase it. So I wouldn't put it past ICE to do something like that underhanded.
Right. And so just for clarification, because this is something that we've been asked a lot, as you mentioned in drawing the distinction between the town and village, the town can't send building inspectors into 29 Elizabeth Drive. Only the village can do that. Is that right?
Yeah. No, that's only under the jurisdiction of the village.
And to your knowledge, has that happened?
Not to my knowledge. I wouldn't be able to confirm that. You would have to ask the mayor.
Yeah, the village of Chester, just for people listening, won't answer any comments. It all goes to Brian Nugent, who's the village of Chester attorney, who we've written about quite a bit. To Monroe Gazette, will simply say no comments. So that's sort of where that's at with the village. I'm hoping your relationship with them is a bit better in that you're at least communicating with them, which that's the case, right? Like I understand you guys are.
Yes, I've communicated with them, at least every week, once a week, at the very least once a week. And also I've been in communication with the county executive at least once a week, and Congressman Ryan, the Assembly's office, and State Senator Skoufis's office, and what's it called? I also spoke to Senator Schumer, not Senator Schumer, his office one time. So, and of course the governor's office I've been in contact with once every couple of weeks here too. So
I'm
I've
glad
been
you've,
trying to talk to everybody.
yeah, no, I'm happy to hear that because I mean, with Schumer and Gillibrand in particular, we've been a little shocked by how quiet they've been. I mean, I know they're busy with, to shut down with DHS and all that, but Schumer was just in Buffalo this week to do a press conference, and I
Mm.
love Buffalo. I spent a lot of time there. If you've got time to stop in Buffalo, you've got time to stop in Chester. It's just my 2 cents. No, so let me ask you. I think don't hold me to this. I think Chester is one of the first town boards to pass a resolution calling for the Assembly and the state Senate to pass the Melt Act. Is that correct?
Yep. Yes.
And what's been the response to that like since you passed the resolution to do that?
Nothing much really. I no one really. I feel like there were some people online that were supportive. There were some people that were against. I just think it's very common sense. We just don't want mass thugs, going around that you can't identify. I just think that's the basics of living in a democracy. So I just, I think it's pretty standard that everybody should be able to get behind, in my opinion.
Yeah,
I just don't think, unless you are part of SWAT or some other sort of special forces, doing internal operations in the United States of America, I don't think that you need a mask, and I don't think that you should be unidentifiable. We would like to be able to hold our law enforcement officers accountable for their actions. And when you do something like that, where you don't have a badge or a name or a mask on, you're purposely just trying to make it as hard as possible to hold you accountable.
right.
So that doesn't really sit well with us.
And I know there was a discussion about New York for all as well. So that kind of brings me to the upcoming election that you have running. I know a lot of residents, myself included, like, I live on the border of Chester. I'm basically a Chester resident for all intents and purposes, just not legally. What what are the implications for the upcoming election in terms of support of something like a resolution asking Governor Hochul to pass New York for all, or just in general
Yeah.
standing up to DHS and ICE? Like, what is on the ground for Chester residents? What does this election mean?
Yeah, I think the Melt Act and the New York for All probably won't play a major role in whether or not somebody's going to vote for somebody not on the ground here in Chester. I think the ICE facility is definitely going to be a wedge issue. I think the majority of people, including Republicans, are against the facility. Elected officials, including. So, yeah, I really don't believe there will be a candidate out there that's running on the platform of let's have ICE come in and everything.
Right.
At least I'd hope. But I can tell you that everybody on the Democratic ticket that's going to be announced in the coming weeks, none of them are in favor of this facility, and they will be running on, keeping ICE out of Chester for sure.
Great. No, that's awesome, and that's definitely, there's a lot of talk of canvassing and going door to door in Chester and making sure people are
Oh
aware
yeah.
of the issue, and so that's definitely something for Chester residents to keep in mind. And another thing to keep in mind, and this is one of the things I wanted to ask you about. Uh, Tell us about what the impact is of this facility being set up in terms of taxes and tax revenue for the town.
Yeah, so if the governments don't get, us just start here. Governments don't get taxed on buildings that they own. So if they were to take over this warehouse, $520,000 was the 2026 amount that was collected in tax revenue from that warehouse, and that goes towards Orange County, the town of Chester, the village of Chester, the library district, the school district, the fire district, and the ambulance district. So $520,000 spread out, in different amounts to those 7 taxing districts. That would go away to $0, which would hurt all of the taxpayers here significantly. It'd be a significant hit in all those budgets, and second order consequence, everybody's pocketbooks. So that would be bad, especially with everybody wanting us to keep our budgets as low as possible and taxes as low as possible. Every dollar helps of tax revenue, and if you take a dollar away from tax revenue, that's a dollar added that needs to be taxed for, unless you were to start doing austerity budgeting and cutting programs and cutting personnel and so on and so forth, which no one wants to see.
Right.
And then on top of that, the implication of, a broader implication of the facility taking over the warehouse would be inevitable protests. Now, you can cry, scream, beg, plead, whatever, all you want about whether or not they should or should not be protesting, and there should and should not be counter protests to those protests. It's an American right. It's a constitutional right. It's the First Amendment for a reason, because it is one of the most foundational to the story of our country. So there's going to be protests, and that will require law enforcement to, one, keep it orderly and peaceful, and of course also keep the protesters safe, keep the counter protesters safe, keep residents and visitors safe, and having police departments out there, being in charge of all that, that's going to also come with a cost, personnel cost, overtime cost, equipment replacement cost, everything. If it's anything like we've seen across the nation, we might need to consider increasing hirings for the department, which will come at a cost. So, just to put in perspective, the city of Minneapolis had about 600 cops on the force, and after like 2 or 3 weeks, they were exhausted and could not. All right. So the after 2 or 3 weeks, they were exhausted. Between the village and the town of Chester, there's about 40 cops between us. So peanuts compared to what other larger areas have had. So that all comes at a cost, and that would be on our Chester residents here, our Chester taxpayers.
Yeah. So just I want to make sure I highlight that. So conceivably, in exchange for ICE setting up, again, what I'm calling a concentration camp, both the town and village might have to cut services in order to pay for just the lost revenue, just to make up the lost revenue from
either cut services or increase taxes. I mean, that's really those two options there, unless there's some magical way to get other revenue to make up for the lost revenue there. But I don't see that happening anytime soon.
Yeah. Let me ask you real quick.
Development takes a long time. New businesses take a long time. Everything, you don't just kind of snap your fingers and say, I'm going to start building another warehouse somewhere or another, strip mall of businesses with sales tax implications and all that. It just doesn't happen.
Right. What about the impacts on Walton Lake and the sewage? I know Village of Chester is out of capacity.
Yeah.
Walton Lake is the water supply for the Village of Chester. What are the impacts that we're looking at from operation of this facility, if you know?
Yeah, so I'm less educated on the water situation. Obviously, the Village of Chester gets their water source from Walton Lake. So that would be a concern for sure. And I think we added that into the letters that we've sent to ICE about our concerns. So we would obviously be concerned about whether or not they are going to also need to draw from that water source, and what the legalities are of them forcing themselves into that aquifer and everything. And that would be a concern. The sewage, I'm a little bit more educated on. Basically, what is being proposed is a warehouse that was meant for just over 100 employees, maybe around 150 employees. They want to turn it into a 1,500 bed detention center with, I guess 1,500 beds. So you're assuming 1,500 minimum detainees, if not more, because we've known them to stuff more into places that they're not supposed to be doing. And plus staff, plus legal counsel, and then also visitation if that's allowed. Support staff to the ICE agents, whatever. So you're talking a couple thousand people, in a facility that was meant for just over 100 employees, when the Village of Chester is already at capacity for sewage capacity. So there's no more capacity to give out. You get your allocation, and that's really it, unless there's a new plant being built, of which we know that there's one being planned, but there's been no details coming out as to who's getting what sort of allocation from that plant, which I've kind of started to be vocal about. So those are the water and sewer are always the foundation of every civilization, and right now that's a major concern for whether or not this facility is going to come into Chester.
Right. And let me ask you before we get into like tactics of what people can do, because you're a relatively new elected official, and I'm just curious what it's been like to suddenly have to deal with something like this just dropped on you from from the federal government.
Yeah, I've kind of felt like that's been like a normal thing now. My first year of being supervisor, was kind of like a cleanup year and getting myself situated and trying to find our way out of a few holes, financially, budgetary wise, and just the gears of the town. So that was my first year. Second year, there was a bit of a scandal, I would call it, or some people would call it, that I'm just not going to get into.
Sure.
So that was dropped on us here, and that was something that we had to deal with. And then scandal did not involve me. Just put it out there.
Yes.
So
Yeah,
another person, and just for your viewers if they didn't know. So that was something that we obviously had to deal with because I represent Chester. And then this, my third year, this is what's dropped on us at the same time. So yeah, it's been kind of difficult having to be able to do your job, which I'm supposed to be answering residents' concerns and looking out for the next budget and making sure our budget actual reports are stable and steady and accurate. And sorry about that.
It's okay. It's all good.
So making sure the town departments are doing their thing, and that all gets kind of put on pause when you're dealing with a situation like this. I'm getting, when I got maybe like 50 emails a day, give or take on average. Now I'm getting like 100 to 150 emails a day. And I'm not even over exaggerating when I say that. Calls, I used to get maybe a handful of calls a day. Now I'm getting a couple dozen calls a day. Interviews for news outlets, I got 0 a day before. now I'm getting like 2 or 3. And I take those news interviews not because I'm vapid and I want to take this opportunity to blow myself up on the internet and everything, but I take them because I want to get the word out on and educate everybody about what's happening here. And hopefully somebody from ICE or the administration hears me and then says, oh, maybe it's a good idea that we talk to this person, or maybe it's not such a good idea to put it here based on the pushback from the local representatives. So that's the reason I take all these interviews. I just want to get the word out as much as possible. It's the only way we can get the word out because ICE still refuses to talk to us. So if you're not willing to take a meeting, then I'm going to use a microphone. That's basically my philosophy there. So it makes it kind of impossible to do the normal day-to-day work that we usually do here. And it makes my on average 10-hour days stretch into 12, 14-hour days when these things kind of happen.
Yeah, and and something that I think you and I have talked about, and I've talked about with other local officials, is that people don't understand that local government is still a full-time job, right? It's you are responsible for thousands of people, and I think all of you are underpaid and underappreciated. So thank you for putting up with all of this.
Appreciate that.
So let me get into, I think, what most people would like to learn a bit more about, which is what are things. Let's start with like Chester residents. What are things that Chester residents could be doing, whether it's village or town, if they don't support having this concentration camp open up?
They should continue to reach out to every elected official in the area that represents Chester and beyond, making their voices heard, for one. 2, they should be asking for the village. The village of Chester can pass a moratorium on detention centers like Kansas City has. So I'm hopeful that the villages. I've sent that information along to the village, and they had said that they were going to be reviewing it. So Chester residents and others can call into the village and say, hey, maybe you should look into doing this thing that Kansas City did. I think it might be productive at this time. And then Orange County, I heard, can also pass something similar to that. So I think they should also, be advocating for that on the whole, Orange County level. And then what was the other thing? It's escaping me. But
let me ask you about
basically general advocacy. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, well, let me ask you about the
No, go ahead.
So, like, would you want people?
Oh, yes, the realtors. Yes. Yeah. So I had posted about some residents had found the realtors and the brokers' email addresses. So I recently posted about that. So that's another thing people on the ground can do is make their voices heard to the people who are supposedly shepherding this deal through. So whether it's you're telling them to kill it or to step away from it, given the implications of what it will mean if it does go through. I think that's something that even if they're not going to respond to you, at the very least, you'd hope that they see it and that hopefully it has some sort of effect on their decision making.
Yeah. And just one more thing on the local level. So I'm recording this after watching about an hour ago the town of Woodbury debate a letter that you had sent asking everyone to sign on. Everyone except the one MAGA, Brandon Couillard, signed on to it. So have you encountered, what's been the response to that letter that you've sent to the other municipalities saying, sign on and join
As
us?
an overwhelmingly positive. Yeah, overwhelmingly positive. We had 35 Democrats from towns, villages, the county legislator, state officials, federal officials sign on to it. And then we had about 13 Republican officials,
Really?
mostly village and town mayors and supervisors, and one of the county legislators, the one that represents Chester, Glenn Ellers, sign on to it. And then we had 5 independents sign on to it as well, mostly village officials who are independents, registered independents. So they do exist. So they signed on. Yeah, so it's been mostly positive. And then I also have additional names to add to it because we had a bunch of Ulster County officials wanting to sign
Really?
on to it. I just haven't gotten around to it because I am incredibly busy. So, but they have pledged to sign on to it as well. So I have those names, and I need to add them to the official letter for records and all. But it's been overwhelmingly positive. Only a very few amount have outright said no, or just not responded, maybe because they didn't get the communication or they just didn't feel like they wanted to respond. And some others have claimed not wanting to put it on, even though they support not having ICE come to Orange County for various reasons, which you can ask those people. Them, I don't want to speak to them for them.
And just for clarity's sake, County Executive Newhouse, has he signed the letter?
No, he was one of the individuals that said that he has specific reasons for not wanting to sign on, even though his public stance is, making sure the facility doesn't come to fruition. So you can ask him for. I don't want to speak for him. I don't
Sure.
believe in speaking for other people.
Yeah, and he, at least my impression from the videos that he's put out is he's much more concerned about the protesters being dangerous than he is ICE. But that's a story for another time. Let me ask
Hmm.
before you go, on the county level for the Democrats. So, and correct me if I'm wrong on this. My understanding is that there are 2 specific actions that can be taken in terms of first blocking a potential facility, and then second ending the contract that currently exists between DHS, ICE, and Orange County to jail detainees in Orange County Jail. So my understanding is first that only County Executive Newhouse can effectively terminate that contract to house detainees at Orange County Jail. Is that right?
Yes,
Okay. And
as
so
far as it's been explained to me. Yeah.
the second thing is, as I've been told from some of the Orange County Democrats, they're ready to sign a bill that says emergency resolution, no concentration camp, no new prisons, no detention facilities, but they need the support of Newhouse in order to sign it. Is that right?
I'm not sure.
Okay. So the reason why I ask is, what are things that on the county level for someone that's watching this that maybe doesn't live in Chester but lives in Orange County, should they reach out to their legislative representatives and say, we want to add?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, they should be reaching out to all their county legislative officials and the county executive's office. I don't think there's anything wrong with signing that resolution that you just spoke about. I think that it could only help. It can only further reinforce the majority opinion of the people who live here in Orange County. The Orange County legislator already passed a unanimous resolution against the facility coming to Chester. I don't see why they can't do the same thing countywide with the county executive support I think that should be a no-brainer, and I'm sure most of them would agree. So yeah, I think there's no reason in people not being able to call their county legislator representatives and the county executive and advocate for them to sign on to something like that. And then also, what was the other thing that you were talking about? Now I'm forgetting.
The contract between DHS and ICE to house
Yes,
the
the
team.
contract. Yeah, I mean, that contract's been in place for quite a while now. I think it's kind of past. I think it's overstayed its welcome, in my opinion. I just with the amount of data that's coming out, I think there was something via court data a couple days ago, 4,400 confirmed illegal arrests nationwide. So that's just confirmed. So it probably is a lot more than that. 40 people dying in ICE custody, and people are people. It doesn't matter if they're American citizens or not. We're all human beings. So, I just don't see the need to be a part of that, to have that be a part of Orange County's legacy any further, in my humble opinion.
And my last question is, what else? If there's something I didn't ask you about that you want people to know about, what would it be?
Last thing I want them to know about.
Yeah, if there's anything I didn't ask you about related to this that you just want to share.
No, I think I've kind of gone over all the reasons why we're against it here. I think I've gone over the ins and outs of everything. I just my last point about all this is, people are kind of. I heard a quote the other day, like, one person's death is a tragedy, and it captures the attention of the nation. When you get to have multiple deaths and multiple, it becomes a statistic, and then the humanity gets lost. So Alex Preddy and Renee Good are tragedies, and it did capture the attention of the nation, especially because they were American citizens and because of how horrific their deaths were. But like I said, a confirmed amount of people dying under ICE custody is around 40 people. Confirmed amount of people dying under CBP custody is around 20 people. And it's probably more than that. And how many convictions have we seen of ICE agents sexually abusing these people in these, so-called, processing centers and detention centers? It becomes a statistic to people, and people forget their humanity. And I'm just begging people not to forget that, even though they might think they need to be deported. Even if you're on that side of this debate, people are still people. So if we're going to do that, if that's what the will of the administration is, can we not find a better way to handle this? Can we not train our officers more? Can we not screen our officers more, our ICE agents more? I heard that their training got cut down from like 6 months to 47 days. I think that is what's it called, exemplary in how they've been handling all these ICE operations, all these immigration operations. So it really reeks of incompetence. It reeks of just outright prejudice, and it all really needs to end and be reformed. And taking it from somebody who worked in Congressman Maloney's office, and I was the head constituent services person for immigration and passports under Congressman Maloney. And I can tell you firsthand that the immigration system in America is screwed up to high heavens. And it's been used as a political football from both sides in different occasions and everything. It needs serious reform. Sure, that we can absolutely do better at border control and security and everything, but the underlying problem is the amount of funding for our judges and the amount of judges and the legal avenues to get into the country. I was dealing with cases 10, 15, 20 years long of people trying to do it the right way and waiting that long to get in. And it's just, we're a nation of immigrants. Shouldn't we have a proper immigration system to allow people to come in the right way so they don't feel like they have to, out of desperation, come the wrong way and then get demonized here for just trying to make a better life for themselves and their family? I don't think so. I think this should not be this difficult. Congress is completely broken, and somebody needs to get in there and wring their necks and just get them to pass some legislation to put an end to all this. We were once debating this as a country in terms of legal pathways for dreamers and DACA and all those things from when I was a kid, and I just feel like we've fallen so far from that. I saw that Spain just legalized 500,000 undocumented immigrants. I believe I saw a report something like that. So ways to find solutions for law-abiding, tax-paying immigrants to stay in the country and find a way to legal citizenship is possible, and keeping bad guys out of the country is possible, and deporting bad guys who are in the country is possible. There is just such a better way to handle it, and it's not being done right now. And I feel like everything I just said, I believe is reasonable.
Yeah.
I'm trying to take the whole Democrat Republican thing out of it that's just my personal belief.
The majority of Americans agree with you. It doesn't, Republican, Democrat, the majority of Americans, about 70%. It's just that crazy 30 to 35%. But that's a discussion for another time. I really appreciate you coming on. Stick around for just 1 second. I'm going to press stop, just make sure everything's uploaded, and we'll catch everyone soon at the Monroe.